Do you believe water can haunt you? I didn't either, until the night I woke up choking on icy drops falling on my face, inside a house where there was no rain, no leaks, no broken pipes, just water, dripping from the ceiling like the sky itself had moved into my bedroom. And standing in the corner of the room was him. Let me go back. I'd heard the stories before. People in South Yorkshire whispered about a man they called the Rain Man. No one knew his real name. He was just a shadow on the edge of town, carrying with him something unnatural. Wherever he stayed, water appeared where no water should be. It wasn't just damp walls. We're talking about ceilings that poured like waterfalls, rooms flooding without rain, carpets soaked through in seconds. Even priests, policemen, and housing officers, people who had no reason to lie, signed statements saying they saw it happen with their own eyes. At first, I thought it was all nonsense, some ghost story to make life in a gray town more interesting. But then, I met him. It was raining that night. Of course it was raining. I was walking home when I saw him standing beneath the street lamp, completely dry. The rain seemed to avoid him, sliding off an invisible shield above his head. He looked miserable. His eyes were hollow, like he hadn't slept in years. Against my better judgment, I asked if he was all right. He only said 4 words. It follows me everywhere. That was when I noticed the ground beneath him wasn't just wet. It was soaked, like someone had poured buckets of water over it. And yet the rain hadn't touched him. Later that week I found him again, this time outside an abandoned building. He asked if he could stay at my flat, just for the night. I don't know why I agreed. Maybe I felt sorry for him, maybe I was curious. But the moment he stepped inside, I knew I had made a mistake. Within an hour, water stains blossomed across the ceiling. Drips fell onto the carpet, spreading into puddles. I checked every pipe, every radiator, everything was bone dry. The water was appearing from nothing. He just sat there, trembling, whispering, "I told you." It follows me. By midnight, the flat was a nightmare. Water seeped from the walls as if the house itself was bleeding rain. My bookshelves warped, photographs peeled away, the lights flickered and hissed. The entire room smelled of damp rot, like a flooded basement. I tried to leave, but the front door wouldn't budge. It was swollen shut from the moisture. I remember turning and seeing him in the living room, his face pale, his eyes staring into nothing. His clothes were now dripping wet. He looked at me, and I swear his voice didn't come from his mouth, but from the walls themselves. "No one can help me, not even God." The next morning I dragged him to a church. I told the priest what happened, expecting him to laugh me out the door. But instead, his face went pale. He told me they had tried before, exorcisms, prayers, holy water. Every time the water only grew worse. He said the man wasn't just haunted. He was a magnet, a living curse that pulled something unnatural wherever he went. That night, I locked my doors and prayed he wouldn't come back. But I still heard it, drip, drip, drip. No matter how many buckets I placed, the water always returned. A few nights later, I woke to the sound of rushing water. The entire flat was flooding. My bed floated, drawers bobbed past me, and I clawed my way to the kitchen table like it was a raft. And then I saw him again, standing in the corner, half submerged. Yet the water didn't seem to touch him. He just stared at me. Tears. Or was it water? Streaming down his face. "Do you see now?" he whispered. The lights burst and the entire flat went black. I thought I was going to drown inside my own home. But when I came to, the water was gone. The floor was dry. He was gone. It was as if it had never happened. I moved out the next day. I couldn't stay there. The walls still smelled like rain, like something had seeped into them that would never leave. Years later, I still hear rumors. People spot him in other towns, always alone, always dripping wet. And wherever he goes, homes flood, ceilings collapse, families flee. Some say he made a deal with something dark. Others believe he's a cursed man, doomed to carry the storm forever. I don't know if he's still alive. Maybe he's out there, wandering the streets, waiting for the next person foolish enough to take him in. But I'll leave you with this. Sometimes, when I lie awake at night, I still hear it. Drip, drip, drip. I check the ceiling. No leaks, no stains, nothing. But I know. I know he's still out there. And maybe, just maybe, he's looking for me again. Have you ever looked out your window during a storm and seen something staring back at you? Not a neighbor, not some lost traveler, but a figure that should not exist. I did. It was a night when the rain felt alive, hammering against the glass, thunder shaking the walls like the whole house was trembling with me. Lightning split the sky, white for just a second, and that's when I saw him. A tall shadow, cloaked, standing in the middle of the street. The storm tore at the trees, rain lashed against my window. But he stood there completely still, the water pouring through him as though his body didn't exist. And in the very next flash of lightning, he was gone. I'll never forget that night because it wasn't just a nightmare. It was real. It was the beginning of my encounter with something people in Pontefract, England, have feared for decades. They call him the Black Monk. Most people have heard of haunted houses, but few have a reputation like the one at 30 East Drive in Pontefract. Back in the late 1960s, the Pritchard family moved in, and what followed was like a storm that never ended. Strange puddles of water would appear on the kitchen floor even during the driest weather. Cupboard doors slammed without reason, lights flickered, then burst into showers of sparks, and then came the figure. A tall, hooded shadow, sometimes glimpsed at the end of the hall, other times standing right by someone's bed. Always watching, always silent, they named him the Black Monk, and he became known as one of Britain's most violent poltergeists. But what most people don't know is how his activity seemed to rise and fall with the weather. The worse the storm outside, the more violent the haunting inside. Rain on the windows meant more than bad weather. It meant he was near. So why did I go to the house? Call it curiosity, call it arrogance. I wanted to see for myself. Ghost hunters called it one of the darkest places in the UK, and I didn't believe it. I thought maybe the stories were just exaggerated, fueled by old superstition. I even convinced myself it would be exciting, an adventure. So on a night when the forecast promised heavy rain and thunder, I made my way to Pontefract. The streets were slick, the lamplight bouncing off the wet pavement. The closer I got to East Drive, the quieter the neighborhood seemed. No one was out, not even the usual stray cat or barking dog, just me and the storm. When I reached number 30, I stopped. The house looked ordinary, too ordinary, just a simple two-story home with a dull front door and curtains drawn tight. But standing there in the rain, I swear the air felt heavier. The thunder didn't just sound above me, it pressed against me like the storm itself was pushing me toward the house. I unlocked the door, stepped inside, and everything changed. The first thing I noticed was the silence. Outside, the rain hammered the streets, but inside it was muffled, as though the house swallowed sound. The air was damp, not just humid, damp like the inside of an old cellar. I thought it was just the storm until I saw the first puddle. A dark patch of water spread across the kitchen floor, glistening faintly in the dim light. I crouched down and touched it. Cold, too cold. But when I looked up, the ceiling was bone dry. No leaks, no dripping pipes. I told myself it didn't matter. Old houses had quirks. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. That's when the lights flickered. Once, twice, then went out completely. I lit a candle I had brought, and the tiny flame cast long shadows against the walls. For a moment, nothing moved, but then I heard it. A low creak from upstairs. Then another, like footsteps. I called out, trying to sound braver than I felt. No answer, just the sound of the storm outside and that dreadful dripping. Drip, 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 And then, in the candlelight, I saw the water spreading faster. The puddle was no longer still. It was rippling as though something beneath the floorboards was stirring. I froze. From the hallway, there came the sound of a chair scraping across the floor, slow and deliberate. My skin crawled as the sound echoed through the house. Then the front door rattled violently, as though someone or something was trying to force it open. I stumbled toward it, candle shaking in my hand. The storm roared outside, rain slamming so hard against the windows it sounded like fists. I looked through the glass panel in the door, and there he was, the Black Monk. A dark figure, taller than any man I'd ever seen, cloaked head to toe. No face, no features, just darkness. The storm tore at the street behind him, wind and rain whipping everything into chaos. But he didn't move, not an inch, just stood there, staring. When the lightning flashed, his outline glowed for the briefest moment, and then disappeared. The door rattled again, this time harder. My candle went out, plunging me into blackness. I ran back into the living room, fumbling for matches, for anything to bring back the light. But before I could strike one, a deafening bang echoed from upstairs. Then another, doors slamming, over and over. The floor beneath my feet vibrated with each crash. The storm outside seemed to seep into the house itself. Walls groaning, windows rattling. And then came the breathing. Slow, heavy, close. I turned, and in the faint silver of the storm outside, I saw him. Not at the door this time, inside, standing in the corner of the room, the Black Monk. His robe dripped though there was no rain indoors, the water pooling at his feet. He moved toward me, not fast, but steady, each step deliberate, as though he knew I couldn't escape. My body refused to move. I could only watch as he drew closer, the air around him freezing cold, the smell of rot filling my nose. And then he stopped, just a few feet away. The hood lifted, just slightly, and though I couldn't see a face, I felt it. His stare, not on my body, not on my face, but deep inside me, like he was looking into something I didn't even know was there. Something broke inside me, fight or flight. And I ran. I don't remember grabbing the door. I don't remember unlocking it. All I remember is bursting into the storm, the rain drenching me instantly. I turned once, just once, to look back. And there he was, standing in the doorway, watching me through the rain, and then lightning lit up the street. And he was gone. Just gone. I didn't stay in Pontefract. I drove for hours, not caring where, until the first light of dawn broke through the clouds. But the Black Monk never really left me. Even now, years later, whenever a storm hits, I feel him. The weight in the air, the silence just before thunder cracks. Sometimes I swear I hear the dripping again. Drip, drip, drip. And once, only once, I looked out my window during a thunderstorm. And I saw him far down the street, standing in the rain, completely still. So I'll ask you again. When lightning flashes outside your window, do you ever look for what it reveals? Because if you do, and you see a tall shadow standing in the storm, don't look twice. Because once the Black Monk knows you've seen him, he'll make sure you see him again. Have you ever heard rain? That didn't sound like rain. Not gentle, not soothing, but desperate. Like someone was tapping on your window, asking to come in. That's how it began for me, 3 knocks against the glass. And then the water started filling my room. I swear to you this story is true. And if you live where the storms come without warning, where the clouds gather too fast, then listen carefully, because once you hear him, once the rain caller comes for you, you'll never sleep through a storm again. I grew up in a small valley town, the kind of place where you know every face, every family, every secret whispered over coffee. We lived by the rhythm of the weather. If the rains came late, people prayed. If the floods came too strong, people cursed. But there was one thing everyone agreed on. When it rained at the wrong time, the wrong way, it wasn't nature, it was him. The old folks called him the rain caller, a figure cloaked in water, a shadow that knocked on windows. They said he wasn't a ghost, he wasn't a man, he was a storm wearing a face. I thought it was just a story, something to scare kids into staying inside during floods. Until the night I learned the truth, it was late spring. I remember because the creek should have been low, the soil thirsty. But that night the air was heavy, swollen with moisture, and the clouds had gathered so quickly it made my stomach turn. I was lying in bed, half awake, when I heard it. Knock, knock, knock. At first I thought it was a branch against the glass. But my window was on the second floor. Nothing could reach it. The sound was slow, deliberate, like a hand. I held my breath, and then I made the mistake of looking. Through the sheet of rain, I saw him, a tall figure in a dripping black cloak, face hidden beneath a wide hat. Water poured off him, pooling on the sill like it was raining only on him. The moment I locked eyes with him, or at least where his eyes should have been, the glass fogged, and water began to trickle down the inside of the window. Inside. I scrambled back, but the knocking didn't stop. It grew louder, faster, the sound of water filling a bucket. And then silence. I thought it was over, but then I heard it drip, drip, drip. From the ceiling, from the walls, from under the bed. Water was seeping out of places it shouldn't. My carpet squelched under my feet. The door frame sagged with damp. When I yanked my door open, a wave of cold water rushed into the hallway. I screamed for my parents. No answer. Their bedroom door was shut, swollen with water, and when I pushed it open, the room was already filled chest high. Their bodies floated, faces pale, eyes wide open. I'll never forget that image. Never. The water rose higher, faster, until it licked at my throat. I tried to run down the stairs, but the entire house had become an ocean. Furniture drifted, family photos dissolved into pulp, and through it all I could hear something, like laughter hidden in the rush of water. I thought I was going to drown, but then the current dragged me back toward my bedroom. My head went under. The world was nothing but bubbles and shadows, and then, through the water, I saw the window again. He was still there, the rain caller. He lifted one dripping hand and tapped the glass. 1, 2, 3. The water surged into my mouth, burning my lungs. Everything went dark. I woke up on the front lawn. The rain was gone. The grass was dry. The house stood perfectly normal, windows intact. No sign of water damage. And yet, my parents were dead, drowned in their bed. The coroner said it was freak flooding. That may be a pipe burst or groundwater seeped up. But how do pipes leave knock marks on the glass? How does water drag a body upstairs? People in town whispered. They knew. They'd seen it before, and they knew it would happen again. I started asking questions. That's when I learned the story in full. They said he was once a hermit farmer, desperate and starving, who begged the sky for help. One night thunder rolled without storm, and a cloaked man came to his door. He offered rain for a price. Every time the hermit prayed, the rain fell, and someone drowned. When the hermit disappeared, the figure remained. Only now he didn't wait for prayers. He chose his own victims, families, strangers, anyone foolish enough to look when the storm knocked. And the detail that haunts me most, what survivors whisper about in hushed voices, is this. The rain caller doesn't walk away. He dissolves. His body becomes the storm. And when you hear the rain tapping faster, louder, almost like fingers drumming on glass, that isn't weather, it's him calling. I thought I could outrun him. I left that valley, moved across the state, tried to bury the memory, but 2 weeks ago, it rained. At first it was ordinary, drops pattering against the roof. The kind of sound you fall asleep to, but then, past midnight, I heard it, 3 knocks, on my window. I froze, told myself it was just a dream, but then the glass fogged, and I saw water sliding down the inside of the pane. And in the reflection, I saw him standing just behind me. I don't remember what happened after that. I woke up on the floor, coughing up water, my apartment bone dry. But since then, every time it rains, I hear the knocking, louder, closer. I know he's waiting. If you've listened this far, remember this. When a storm comes too quickly, when the first drop feels colder than it should, do not look outside. Do not listen to the knocking, because the rain caller is real, and once he chooses you, he never stops. The next time you hear rain against your window at midnight, don't assume it's the weather, because maybe it's not. Maybe it's him, and maybe he's already calling for you.